Hello, everybody. I hope you are enjoying your online day so far. So far in class, you guys have talked a lot about making graphs and reading graphs, but I want to show you today how to make a graph using Google Sheets. So if you go on into your Drive, you should be able to create a new sheet. You might have to go to more options before you can find it, but it is going to be in there. Once you open it, you'll see a nice blank page like this. And I will probably actually attach this one or one very similar to it to a classroom assignment for you to play with. So there's already numbers in there. Like I said, what we're going to do today is actually make some graphs using these numbers. So the first thing you always want to do is highlight these numbers. I'm using a laptop where you can click and drag. That makes it a lot easier, but sometimes the Chromebooks you can't click and drag. To highlight all of the numbers, you can hold down the Shift key and then use your arrow keys, and it will highlight the numbers. Okay, so what I did there was I held down Shift, and then I started with the arrow keys. So here I hit the right one, and it selected those two. And then I hit down until they were all selected. Then from here, we can actually go to Insert and insert a chart. So yes, we're talking about graphs, but Google likes to call it charts. So we're going to insert a chart, and you can see here we've got a nice chart that pops up. But this chart is not going to be the most useful for what we want, especially in regards to science. So here it just shows you a line. It doesn't show you where your data points are. So what we really want is not a line chart, but a scatter plot. And to change that, you're going to come over here to Chart Type, click on it, and it's nice and easy because it's one of the suggested ones, but if it's not, I'll show you where it is. So we can click on that. If it's not one of the suggested ones, you just have to scroll down a little bit and it's right here. So we've got our nice scatter plot and we can see all of our dots. And these, if this were real data, these would be our data points that we actually collected. So we don't want to stop here. Our chart doesn't have a title. There's not really anything important that it's showing us. So we want to actually add some more information. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Customize. So we've got our Setup tab and our Customize tab. We want to click on Customize. If you click on Chart Style, we can do all sorts of things about changing the color and make it not a particularly pleasant lime green right now. We'll change that back to white. We can make it bigger, we can make it smaller, we can change the chart border color. These are all the fun options. Some more scientifically important ones are going to be under the chart axis and title. Now, this tab can be a little confusing because there's a whole bunch of options hidden under this drop-down menu. So what you want to do is start by going to chart title. And then we're going to name this chart. As you can see here, this is a nice straight line. And so this is what we're going to call a linear graph. So we're going to type that in. It's going to show up right here up on top. We can change the font. We can change the size. Whatever about this we want to change, we can change. For right now, we're going to leave it like it is, or at least I am. You can change it if you want. We're going to go to the chart title. If you want to add a chart subtitle, that's just going to go underneath your chart. We don't really need it, but I'll show you where it goes. So you can see here, it shows up down here. If you're making a specific graph and you need to show a little bit more information, that's a great way to do it. Most graphs, I will not require you to have a subtitle. Now, if we go to the horizontal axis title, this is going to give us the title for this axis down here, okay? One way that I always remember which one's horizontal, which one's vertical. Horizontal sounds like horizon, and the horizon's going to be flat. So this is going to be our horizontal axis. Our horizontal axis, you can actually see I already typed this in before because I tested this. We're going to call this our x-axis independent value. So you probably won't have this pop up. Like I said, I already tested this out. And so it's giving me a previous thing that I already typed in. So our x-axis is this one. And we're calling this our independent variable because this is the variable that we are putting in, okay? Our vertical axis, so this one over here, is going to be our y-axis, and we're going to call it our dependent variable. The reason for that is the value we get out here depends on the variable we put in here. So we're going to go and put that in now. So like I said, you're going to have to type this in. You won't have that option pop up. It's just making it a little bit easier for me because I've done it before. So we've finished our horizontal axis, and now we're going to go to our vertical axis. Okay, so we're going to click on that. This is going to give us the title for this side. So once again, I already did this, so it is popping up with an option for me to put the same thing in. But I did have to type it in the first time. So we're going to select that, and you'll see that it pops up on this side, and it's nice and sideways. We don't have to worry about rotating it or anything like that. Now, if you guys are having trouble seeing these or want to change something about the way it looks, we can go in and change our font style and size. You've got all sorts of different options, so you guys can have fun with that. Some of the other things that we want to look at, if you guys read the website, you'll notice that I said something about a trend line or a line of best fit. And on there I explained that that's going to be our line that's going to go closest to all of our data points. Now, the data that I gave you is actually one that's going to line up perfectly along a line. And so our trend line will go through all of our data points for this specific, very contrived example. So what we want to do is we will actually want to come down here, and in this series panel, there's a checkbox down here that's called trend line. That's going to give us our line of best fit. So we're going to check that, and you'll see that a nice little line pops up here. This line, like I said, is going to be a line that they actually calculate to come closest to all of these data points. So it's not just connecting the dots, even though it looks like it here. It is a little bit different. And I'll show you guys an example later on, probably in a different video, where it doesn't go through all of those data points. Error bars and data labels we'll talk about later, hopefully when we're actually all back in class. Error bars are very useful for scientific things, but we're not going to really get to where we need them. Now, in later videos, assuming that we can't do this all in class, I'll talk about some of these other different types of fit lines. For right now, we're just going to stick to linear. Now, there's a whole bunch of other options. You can play around with them all you want. We can even change our points to stars or X's and change the size of them. But I'll let you guys play with that. So, the one other thing I did want to show you guys right now is you can see here that our line doesn't really start where it should, and our last data point's cut off. And we can actually modify the range that the computer shows. And it's actually pretty easy to do. So what we want to go into is this horizontal axis tab. And for now, I'm going to set my minimum value as 0 and my maximum value as 12. And you can see here that things have kind of moved around. So we have a 0 down here, and then now this one goes out to 12. So our data point's not on the end, but it's still right at the top. So we need to change our vertical axis as well. We're going to put a 0 in here once again. It's already at 0, but we'll just make sure that it stays there. We're going to put 12 in here. And now we can see that all of our data points are now very clearly seen on the screen. And that's what we really want. We don't want any of our data points cut off. We can also see now that our line doesn't just connect the points, it actually goes past our points. This is a really cool thing. If you have a well-drawn trend line, you can actually use this to predict where future measurements will come. So let's say that maybe we were measuring the weight of something, and we found that as we added another, I don't know, rock, it increased by 1 Newton every time we added a rock. And so if we continued adding rocks of the same size, we would assume that it would follow this trend line. And we would assume that it would continue to increase just like that. So in a situation like that, a trend line's not the most useful, but there are a lot of situations where we have much more complicated things going on, and our trend line can actually give us a good idea of what's going to happen if we were to test those other situations. So I hope this was helpful. I hope this gives you a good idea of how to make a graph, and I hope you guys are having a good day. Hope to see you back in class soon.